Here is a very interesting story about how a city councilman and his staff reacts to a complaint from one of their constituents, a disabled veteran regarding a mobility issue. In this situation, the veteran, as you can see here, couldn't use a public sidewalk because it was blocked by a contractor's construction sign in the 1100 block of North Main Avenue near a medical office, also known as the Packard Building. That office serves veterans, both those that are disabled and mobility challenged, and those that are not. In this case, the veteran was in a wheelchair. The veteran was attempting to use the sidewalk and encountered this challenge. As you can see here, the sidewalk was entirely blocked, forcing a mobility challenged person to use their wheelchair to go down a steep incline, around the sign, and then back up a steep incline. In addition to this incline safety hazard, the veteran had to actually enter the street in the right-hand lane to get back onto the sidewalk on the other side of the sign. The repercussions of the veteran being struck by a car was very possible, and this area is in the middle of the block, unmarked by a traffic device or striping to allow access to the street. When he encountered this situation, the veteran did his civic duty and called 311. 311 is the City of San Antonio call center, for which citizens can call to get service and have their issues addressed rather than use their city council or constituents office. But as shown in this story, the system failed with this opportunity for the City of San Antonio to listen to this veteran's comments and to improve. The veteran filed the concern with 311 on Thursday, July 13th at about 3:45 p.m. He provided the location by address to the call taker. As is customary, a log number was assigned to the call, and the call was forwarded to the Code Compliance Department for the City of San Antonio. A copy of the ticket shows it was opened. The following Tuesday, on July 18th at about 10 o'clock a.m., the call was closed as resolved. In the ticket, it stated the call had been, quote, investigated and closed according to standard operating procedures and city ordinance requirements. However, it wasn't. The veteran returned to the area on the following day, July 19th, after being assured the issue was fixed, and again encountered the sign which had not been moved or addressed. In fact, it still remained in the exact same spot, blocking the sidewalk. So on Thursday, July 20th, at about 10 o'clock in the morning, the veteran called 311 again and filed the exact same complaint, saying the issue had not been resolved and the ticket should not have been closed. At that time, the call center provided the name of the code compliance officer and his supervisor at the request of the veteran. Additionally, 311 opened another ticket for the same problem that was identified almost a week ago. The veteran called the supervisor of code compliance, Mr. Art Arredondo, who had identified himself as the supervisor and was greeted with a voicemail that stated he was the central supervisor. However, the veteran could not leave a message, as the voicemail stated, "You cannot leave a message, as this voicemail box is full." The veteran then called Officer Flores, who had been assigned the call. He stated he had closed the ticket because he could not locate the sign. He essentially blamed 311 for not providing information, even though the ticket provided him with the name and telephone number of the complainant. The veteran told him specifically again where the sign was located. It's a pretty large sign and hard to miss, but apparently code compliance fell short. Code Compliance Officer Flores closed the call, but did not ensure it had, quote, been investigated and closed according to standard operating procedures and city ordinance requirements, unquote. Officer Flores never apologized and never made assurances that the problem would be resolved. When the veteran was in the area again for a medical appointment on Friday, July 21st, now 1 week since he had initially reported the problem, to his surprise, he was again greeted with the challenge of the large sign blocking the sidewalk. Since he felt he had now exhausted the 311 call center option to get resolution, The ticket had not yet been closed. He contacted the city councilman Cruz Shaw for District 2. He was treated on the telephone very abruptly and rudely by a female who was interruptive and immediately transferred the constituent veteran to a voicemail at Code Compliance and wouldn't listen to the complaint or apologize. Imagine the surprise when the veteran, who is a District 2 constituent, discovered he was sent to another Code Compliance voicemail and again was greeted with a full voicemail box and was unable to leave a message. Of course, he immediately called back to the downtown office of his city's councilman, Cruz Shaw, and the telephone was now being ignored. Within a minute, no one would answer the telephone. He left a message on the morning of Friday, July 21st, to have the city councilman call him. That call never came. He left another message at 5:17 p.m. and asked again for the councilman to call. And that call never came. In fact, there was no response from anyone at the office of Councilman Cruz. After getting nowhere by July 25, 2017, the veteran called Jarvis at the Eastside Constituents Office for District 2 and stated what had happened. Jarvis remained after hours to address the complaint and to pass messages for the central office to call him. They did so on Wednesday, July 26th. And at this time, the veteran noticed that the sign had been moved, and this exposed an even bigger problem for a mobility-challenged citizen. The sidewalk was destroyed and cracked so that a wheelchair-bound person would have to maneuver carefully around the damage now that the sign was finally moved. So, on July 26th, the veteran also received this voicemail from Officer Flores of Code Compliance.
This is Code Compliance Officer Flores with the City of San Antonio. Note the location again that you had opened the case for the construction sign blocking the sidewalk. I just came by there right now at 3:55 from location. I observed that the sign that was blocking the sidewalk at 1027 North Main has been removed and is no longer blocking the sidewalk. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this matter and the complaint that you generate, please give me a call at my work number.
Did the Code Compliance officer report the damaged sidewalk to have it repaired? On Thursday again, the veteran spoke with the central office and was assured that Bernicia Berry, Chief of Staff, would call for this story. Again, that call never came. Another message was left for Councilman Cruz, and that call was never returned. What makes this entire process particularly surprising is that Mr. Cruz Shaw touts on his website his Navy veteran status and his Navy service, but yet he doesn't react to a disabled citizen who happened to be a veteran. And as a part of the production completion for this story, Councilman Shaw nor his Chief of Staff, Ms. Berry, have contacted the veteran or this reporter to provide a comment for this story. This begs some questions. If the city of San Antonio is this slow to react to a handicapped veteran, how do they react to the general citizen complaint? The veteran and this reporter had to make a total of 16 calls, and it still took 12 days to move the sign that should have never been placed there. Does the city inspector who handles construction bids assure ADA compliance and compliance with municipal code, or does the burden fall on the mobility-challenged citizen, or any citizen for that matter, to pursue a corrective action? In addition, how many city taxes and funding are wasted on repeat calls for service because calls are closed before they are resolved? This reporter is fairly sure that the 311 call center reports inbound call statistics and touts them as successful. But how many of those calls are repeat calls? Wouldn't that skew the inbound call numbers? A review of their calls from the 2017 budget shows a decrease. However, this measurement is based only on the calls from the 311 call center. It doesn't account for the online 311 reporting, which in their own report was a goal, a reduction of calls. So if the city eliminates repeat calls to 311, or even to its online tools, shouldn't that budget be less? Because the call volume is reduced, both online and through the telephone, is staffing reduced and city workers transferred to other positions. Remember, efficiency means working smarter, not harder. The City of San Antonio Call Center has a budget of an unknown amount, and it is not reflected as a line item in the 2017 budget, but is lumped in with many other departments, such as libraries, municipal courts, animal service, the city manager's office, human resources, and many other departments. The budget combined for these general fund items is $253 million. Finally, how come there is no option to reply to a message you receive via email or text? As a citizen, you are forced to call in again, or you can use the online system, both of which require a repetition on the part of you, the constituent. If a process was in place to quality control those calls and ensure action was taken, how much of our tax dollars would be saved each year on unnecessary repeat service calls and unnecessary city employees having to compensate for the simple lack of service or repetition of service? Again, wouldn't our efficiency be increased and our budget for this city office be decreased? Again, as of the time this story was finished production, neither Councilman Shaw nor his chief of staff ever contacted this reporter to provide a comment, even though they were invited to do so. As with most negative situations, this story isn't all bad. Kudos go to Jarvis Soyu, who has, as been his performance in the past, got the ball rolling and solved the problem. He did this even though technically the situation wasn't in his service area, it was downtown, but he still satisfied his constituent. It's unfortunate that the rest of the city staff in this matter didn't possess the same positive customer and citizen service focus. We wonder what Cheryl Scully, the city manager, would say about her city staff in this instance. Stay tuned, and we will provide a follow-up if we ever get one.